What if everything you know about life is wrong? What if Earth is not the cradle of humanity, but only the stage, and the seeds of life were planted here long ago by forces far beyond our imagination? For centuries, myths, science, and whispers from the stars have carried the same haunting question. Were we placed here on purpose? Tonight, on Beyond Our Dawn, we dive into a mystery that stretches across time, from ancient civilizations to the edge of the cosmos. If you're ready to question everything you thought you knew about where we come from, and where we might be going, then stay with us. And if you crave more journeys like this, subscribe now, because this is just the beginning. When night falls, the sky stretches open like a vast curtain of velvet, studded with countless points of shimmering light. It does not matter whether you are sitting quietly in your room, walking outside on a cool evening, or lying down with closed eyes as you drift toward sleep. The stars remain, scattered across the firmament, patient, silent, eternal. For as long as humans have existed, they have gazed upward and wondered. Each star seems to whisper questions older than language itself. Where do we come from? Why are we here? Are we truly children of the earth, or could it be that life itself arrived from the depths of the cosmos? It is a thought that feels both daring and delicate, as fragile as starlight. Imagine for a moment that everything alive on earth, every tree swaying in the breeze, every bird in the forest, every human heart beating softly in the dark might be connected to a seed that once drifted through space. Perhaps a grain of dust carrying the potential for life fell upon the young earth billions of years ago, like a tiny ember finding fuel in an endless night. Perhaps we are not rooted solely in this planet, but instead belong to the wider universe, tied to galaxies and suns that existed long before our world had cooled enough to hold oceans. Such a thought is not new. The idea that life may have originated from beyond our planet has traveled through human history like a hidden current. Ancient cultures told stories of beings who descended from the heavens to bring fire, language, or knowledge. Philosophers speculated that the seeds of existence were scattered everywhere, waiting only for the right conditions to awaken. Even in the modern age of science, the question has never quite disappeared. It lingers, resurfacing whenever we look into the night sky with a mixture of awe and curiosity. The name given to this idea is Panspermia. The word is Greek in origin, meaning seeds everywhere, a poetic image that captures the essence of the theory that the seeds of life could travel across the cosmos, born on the backs of comets, sheltered in the hearts of asteroids, or hidden in clouds of interstellar dust, until at last they find a home where they can grow. Earth, then, would not be the birthplace of life, but the garden where life happened to flourish. Even if we do not yet know whether this idea is true, there is something calming, almost tender, about it. The thought suggests that life is not a rare accident, not a lonely spark in a void, but a natural consequence of the universe itself. Just as rain eventually finds its way into rivers, and rivers find their way into the sea, perhaps the chemistry of stars inevitably finds its way into living things. Perhaps the cosmos is not empty after all, but filled with potential, with possibilities, with seeds waiting for the right soil. Imagine lying on a quiet field beneath the stars. The air is cool, the grass presses softly against your skin, and the sky stretches endlessly above. In the silence, you begin to sense how small you are, yet at the same time, how deeply connected. The earth spins gently, the constellations wheel slowly across the heavens, and you are both a speck in an infinite night and a witness to its beauty. It is in moments like this that the question arises naturally, almost unbidden. Did life begin here, or was it placed here? Throughout history, different civilizations have tried to answer in their own way. The Greeks imagined that the seeds of life floated throughout the cosmos, carried by winds of ether. In India, ancient hymns spoke of divine sparks that descended from above. In Egypt, myths told of gods traveling from the stars to create order from chaos. The Mayans believed their ancestors came down from the heavens with the knowledge to shape the world. Stories echo across time, each culture gazing upward and sensing something more than distant light. Science, too, has had its share of dreamers willing to wonder. In the 19th century, as the mysteries of biology unfolded, some thinkers proposed that perhaps spores or microorganisms could survive in the cold of space and journey from planet to planet. Later, in the 20th century, the discovery of organic molecules on meteorites revived the question with new urgency. Could it be that the building blocks of life are scattered everywhere, waiting only to land upon a planet like Earth, where oceans and sunlight can nurture them into complexity? Whether myth or science, the question itself exerts a strange gravity. It draws the mind outward, away from the daily concerns of life, and into the vastness beyond. And in that vastness, there is comfort. If life is cosmic, if we are not confined to a single fragile world, then we belong to something greater than ourselves. We are participants in a story that stretches from the first stars to the galaxies yet unborn. Consider the perfection of Earth. The planet lies in a narrow band around the sun where conditions are just right, not too hot, not too cold. Water flows in rivers and gathers in seas. Oxygen fills the air in breathable balance. The moon steadies our planet's tilt so that seasons follow one another with gentle rhythm. It almost seems too fortunate, too finely tuned. If it were random, the coincidence is astonishing. If it were guided, the intention is humbling. In either case, Earth becomes more than just a place to live. It becomes a cradle where something precious has taken root. Tonight, as you listen, you do not need to reach a conclusion. You do not need to solve the mystery. Let the question remain suspended, like a star that twinkles without revealing its distance. Allow the idea to drift gently through your thoughts, that perhaps life is not bound to Earth alone, that perhaps the story of existence began long before our world was born. There is peace in that thought, a serenity in knowing that we may be part of a grander design. Whether deliberate or accidental, close your eyes for a moment and picture tiny motes of dust glimmering in the light of a distant star. They drift slowly, carried on currents we cannot see, wandering across light years of darkness. Most will be lost, consumed in fire, frozen in silence, or scattered into nothingness. But a few, just a few, may find their way to a young planet where conditions are kind. They fall through an atmosphere, land in warm water, and dissolve into the chemistry of creation. From such humble beginnings, life stirs. Slowly, patiently, it unfolds, until eons later. A creature with wondering eyes looks up at the stars and whispers, "Where do I come from?" That creature is you. That question is yours. It belongs not only to the philosophers, not only to the scientists, but to every human who has ever felt the pull of the night sky. It is the question of children lying awake and staring through their bedroom windows. The question of poets, of travelers, of dreamers, of anyone who has paused long enough to feel the weight and wonder of existence. This first part of our journey is not about answers. It is about setting the stage, opening the curtain, and inviting the mind to wander. In the chapters ahead, we will explore what panspermia truly means, the evidence that scientists have discovered, the myths that echo its possibility, and the implications it carries for who we are. But for now, it is enough to rest in the question itself. As you drift toward sleep, let the thought linger like a lullaby. What if life did not begin here? What if it came from the stars, carried across eternity, patiently waiting for the right moment to bloom? What if you, and all of us, are not merely children of Earth, but children of the cosmos? Let the stars watch over you tonight. Let the silence of the universe soothe you. Tomorrow we will continue, and the mystery will unfold a little further. But tonight, you need only dream of seeds among the stars, and the garden they found here long ago. The question has been planted, like a seed in the quiet soil of the mind, and now it begins to unfold. When we gaze at the night sky and ask whether we might have come from beyond this earth, we are really stepping into one of humanity's oldest traditions. To wonder is to belong to a lineage of dreamers stretching across thousands of years, each adding their voice to a chorus that hums softly beneath the stars. It is a lineage that speaks not in definitive answers, but in stories, in speculation, in myths carried on the breath of generations. Before science offered microscopes and telescopes, people made sense of the cosmos with imagination. The heavens were not just lights in the sky, but homes of gods, travelers, and ancestors. To the Sumerians, the sky was the dwelling place of the Anunnaki, mysterious beings said to have descended to shape human destiny. In Egypt, the stars were the domain of Ra and Osiris, guiding the cycles of life and death. The Greeks envisioned gods perched atop Olympus, but even beyond Olympus, they sensed the stars as part of a divine order. In the Americas, the Maya studied the constellations with such care that their calendars rivaled modern precision. To them, the heavens were a living book, recording the patterns of time, the rhythms of growth, the secrets of beginnings. In all of these traditions, the theme repeats. Life did not simply emerge by accident here on Earth. Instead, it was gifted, guided, or placed, whether by deities, spirits, or travelers from the sky. Humanity's origins were tied to something larger, something beyond the visible horizon. To dismiss these stories as pure invention would be too simple. They reveal a deep intuition, a sense that Earth alone could not contain the fullness of our beginning. When science began to replace myth as the language of understanding, the question did not vanish. It merely transformed. Philosophers of ancient Greece, such as Anaxagoras, speculated that life might be distributed throughout the universe, carried like seeds by cosmic winds. Centuries later, in the 19th century, scientists began to consider whether microscopic life forms could survive the harsh conditions of space. Could spores, protected within rocks or dust, endure cold, radiation, and time? If so, then the Earth might not have been the origin, but rather the recipient of life. The discovery of meteorites containing organic molecules gave new fuel to the speculation. These rocks, fallen from space, carried within them the very building blocks of biology: amino acids, complex carbon structures, precursors of DNA. It was as if the universe itself had delivered a message, a whisper that said, the seeds of life are not bound to one world, but scattered widely, like pollen drifting on cosmic winds. Pause for a moment and imagine this on a cosmic scale. Imagine countless planets circling countless suns, some barren, some fiery, some frozen. And yet, among them, a few are cradles, places where the chemistry of water, light, and air creates a stage upon which life can begin its play. The seeds fall randomly, perhaps from comets breaking apart, perhaps from asteroids colliding, perhaps from dust carried in great interstellar clouds. Most land where nothing can grow, but here and there, on a planet like Earth, the seeds find warmth, liquid, and shelter. From that moment, the quiet miracle begins. If this is true, then life is not an anomaly but a pattern, not an isolated event but an inevitable expression of the universe's creativity. Every star we see could be the parent of worlds that are gardens. Every galaxy could hold millions of places where seeds have taken root. Perhaps the cosmos is not empty but alive, filled with variations of the same story, dust becoming molecules, molecules becoming cells, cells becoming creatures who look up and wonder, just as we do now. It is an idea that brings comfort. If life is widespread, then we are not alone. Our story is not fragile, not unique, but part of a greater whole. And yet, it also stirs unease. If others exist, if other seeds have grown into other beings, then where are they? Why has the sky remained silent, no signals reaching us, no visitors descending openly? This paradox, often called the Fermi paradox, sits at the heart of our curiosity. It is as though we stand in a vast forest, calling out, and hearing nothing but the echo of our own voice. But perhaps the silence is not emptiness. Perhaps it is distance. The stars are far, and the universe is patient. If panspermia is true, then time itself is the gardener. Seeds do not sprout all at once. Some may still be waiting, dormant on worlds where the conditions are not yet ready. Others may already have bloomed, civilizations rising and falling before their light could ever reach us. We may simply be at the beginning of our own flowering, unaware of the wider field around us. Consider, too, the resilience of life. Here on Earth, it thrives in boiling vents at the bottom of the ocean, in frozen tundra, in deserts where rain does not fall for decades, in caves where light has never entered. Microbes have been found surviving exposure to the vacuum of space, clinging stubbornly to spacecraft, enduring conditions that seem utterly hostile. If life can persist here, in such extremes, then why not elsewhere? Why not everywhere? In this light, the Earth is less an isolated miracle and more a participant in a universal pattern. The oceans and mountains, the forests and fields, the very breath in our lungs all may be the continuation of a story written across galaxies. If we allow ourselves to think this way, the question of what if we were placed here feels less like fantasy and more like a natural possibility. Placed not necessarily by design, though perhaps that too, but at least by the natural scattering of seeds in a fertile universe. And yet, there is another layer. Some thinkers have wondered whether panspermia could be more than random. What if the seeds were not merely carried by accident, but directed by intention? What if, long ago, a civilization advanced enough to master biology and space travel chose to spread life deliberately? To them, sending microbes across the cosmos might be as ordinary as scattering grain is for us. Some would fail, some would thrive, but over time, life would bloom in countless places. Earth might be one such place, a garden tended not by accident, but by unseen hands. This idea, called directed panspermia, unsettles as much as it fascinates. If we were seeded deliberately, then who were the gardeners? Why did they choose this world, and what purpose did they have in mind? Were we meant to grow into what we are, or are we only at the beginning of a path we cannot yet see? The questions open like doors into a hallway of mirrors, each reflection showing a possibility both strange and profound. Even if no answers arrive, the act of asking reshapes us. It changes the way we see Earth, the way we see ourselves. If life is cosmic, then our responsibility deepens. We are not merely caretakers of a single planet, but participants in a story that spans the stars. Our actions, our choices, our ability to nurture or destroy these, take on a weight that extends far beyond our lifetime. Tonight, as you drift deeper into this thought, let it settle over you like a blanket. The stars above are not distant strangers, but perhaps relatives, companions, echoes of the same origin. Each point of light is a reminder that life could be everywhere, that the silence of the cosmos may be less a refusal and more a waiting. In the stillness of your own breath, you are part of that waiting, part of that unfolding. The question remains unanswered, and perhaps that is as it should be. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved in haste, but carried gently like a lantern in the dark. The light is not strong, but it is enough to guide us forward, enough to remind us that we belong to something vast, something enduring, something beyond comprehension. So let the question rest with you tonight. Are we the children of Earth alone, or are we children of the cosmos? Did life rise from stone and water by chance, or did it arrive as a seed from the stars? Whatever the answer, the question itself is a gift. It slows us down, lifts our eyes, and reminds us of the wonder that waits just beyond the edge of certainty. Breathe slowly, and imagine again the drifting of seeds through the darkness. Patient, eternal, waiting for the right moment. One of those seeds may have been ours. One of them may be us. And the story is still unfolding. When we pause to consider the earth itself, the place we call home, we begin to realize how unusual, how improbably perfect it really is. It hangs in space like a fragile ornament, a blue and green marble wrapped in a thin film of atmosphere, circling a star that burns neither too hot nor too cold. From a distance, it looks delicate, almost too delicate to sustain the vast complexity of forests and oceans, of cities and civilizations, of our own thoughts and dreams. And yet here it is, steady, enduring, patient across the ages. Scientists often call Earth the Goldilocks planet, borrowing from the old children's tale where one bowl of porridge is too hot, another too cold, but one is just right. Earth, it seems, is just right in countless ways. The distance from the sun, the tilt of its axis, the size of its moon, the composition of its atmosphere, all of these factors align in a way that feels almost uncanny. If the planet were tilted a little differently, the seasons might swing wildly, making stability impossible. If the atmosphere were slightly thinner or thicker, life as we know it could not breathe. If the oceans did not cycle as they do, the balance of temperature and climate would collapse. Again and again, Earth seems to strike the narrow path between extremes. Walking a tightrope of existence with remarkable grace, the sun itself plays its part. Not too large, not too small, it shines steadily, without the violent flares that would sterilize the planets nearby. It is middle-aged in cosmic terms, burning brightly but calmly, giving just enough light and warmth to sustain the fragile chemistry of life. Stars larger than the sun burn too fiercely, dying young and leaving little time for life to evolve. Stars smaller flicker faintly, often locking their planets into harsh extremes of heat and cold. But the sun, our sun, is gentle, stable, long-lived, perfect for a planet like Earth to flourish. Even the moon, that pale and silent companion, contributes to the balance. Its gravity stabilizes the Earth's tilt, preventing the planet from wobbling chaotically. Without the moon, Earth's axis might swing unpredictably, turning summers into unbearable heat and winters into endless ice. The moon also stirs the oceans, pulling the tides in and out, mixing the waters, shaping coastlines, and perhaps, in the beginning, creating the tidal pools where life first took hold. It is easy to look up at the moon and see only beauty, but in truth, it is part of the machinery that keeps Earth habitable. The more we look, the more the balance is. The Earth's magnetic field shields us from deadly solar radiation, generated by molten iron turning deep within the planet's core. The thin atmosphere holds warmth close, but not too close, allowing water to flow as liquid rather than freeze or boil away. The very composition of the air, 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. A trace of carbon dioxide, creates conditions that are not only survivable, but perfect for breathing, for burning, for growing. And then there is water, the universal solvent, the medium of life. Earth has it in abundance, covering more than 2/3 of its surface. It cycles endlessly, rising as vapor, falling as rain, freezing into ice, melting again into rivers and seas. Without water, the planet would be barren, a dry husk drifting through space. But here, water flows freely, nurturing forests, feeding crops, filling the veins of every living creature. It is the bloodstream of Earth, and somehow, in some improbable way, Earth has just enough of it, held in balance for billions of years. Pause and consider the odds. Astronomers now know that there are billions of planets in our galaxy alone, and yet the number of worlds where all these conditions align appears astonishingly small. Too close to a star, and a planet bakes into lifeless desert. Too far, and it freezes in endless night. Without a magnetic field, radiation strips the atmosphere away. Without plate tectonics, the cycle of carbon and oxygen falters. Without the right chemistry, the building blocks of biology cannot form. Earth has all of these, not in fragments, but woven together into a seamless whole. The question that follows is simple but profound. Was this balance mere accident, or was it intention? If it was accident, then we are impossibly fortunate, the beneficiaries of chance stacked upon chance, a winning lottery ticket drawn against overwhelming odds. If it was intention, then we are part of a design, placed here deliberately, nurtured by a system so finely tuned that it borders on the miraculous. The thought is not new. Philosophers and theologians have long pointed to the harmony of Earth as evidence of a guiding hand. Scientists, cautious, remind us that even improbable events can occur if given enough time and enough chances. Yet the feeling persists, especially when one contemplates the fragile thread of conditions that make our existence possible. The sun's warmth, the moon's pull, the air in our lungs, the water in our veins. Without any one of these, we would not be here to ask the question at all. There is a strange beauty in this balance. To sit quietly and breathe, to feel the coolness of air enter the lungs, is to participate in something that stretches back to the first cells that drew breath. To drink water is to share in a cycle that has flowed for billions of years, rising from seas, falling as rain, carving rivers, nourishing forests. To look at the moon is to gaze upon the silent guardian that steadies our planet's dance. To feel sunlight on your skin is to receive energy from a star that has burned for 4.5 billion years, steady, unwavering, life-giving dot at times. It is easy to take these things for granted. We wake, we eat, we work, we sleep, all without noticing the intricate harmony that sustains us. But when the question of placement arises, when we ask whether we were put here, intentionally or by chance, the veil lifts, and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Each sip of water, each breath of air, each glimmer of sunlight becomes part of the mystery, part of the fragile perfection of Earth. Some scientists describe this as the anthropic principle, the idea that we notice the conditions of Earth precisely because we are here to observe them. In other words, perhaps the universe contains countless lifeless worlds, and it is only natural that we find ourselves on the rare one where life is possible. Yet even this explanation does not strip the wonder away. It only deepens it. For if life is so improbable, then the fact that it exists at all becomes all the more miraculous. Others speculate that life may be less improbable than we imagine. Perhaps the universe is filled with worlds as finely balanced as ours, each carrying its own forms of life, its own creatures gazing upward in wonder. If that is true, then Earth is not unique, but one voice in a vast cosmic choir. The harmony is still beautiful, still mysterious, still profound. For now, we cannot know. What we can do is recognize how rare, how precious, how finely tuned our own world is. We can walk outside and feel the air on our skin, hear the rustle of leaves, watch the shimmer of stars reflected in water, and remember that all of this rests upon balances so precise, so delicate that they might never have occurred at all. And yet they did. And here we are, as you listen, perhaps lying quietly in your room or drifting toward sleep. Allow yourself to feel that balance within your own body. The rhythm of your breath mirrors the rhythm of Earth's atmosphere. The beat of your heart echoes the cycles of seasons and tides. You are not separate from this harmony. You are part of it, a living thread in the intricate fabric of the planet, whether by chance or by design. By accident or intention, Earth has given you a place to exist, to think, to feel, to wonder. And in that gift, there is something that transcends explanation. You do not need to decide tonight whether it was luck or purpose. You need only rest in the awareness that your life, your very presence, is possible because the universe allowed for one small planet to be just right. Close your eyes and picture Earth floating in the darkness, wrapped in its veil of blue, turning silently, patiently, beneath the light of the sun. Picture the moon circling steadily, the tides rising and falling, the forests breathing in and out, the oceans pulsing with life. All of it balanced, all of it sustained, all of it improbable, and yet undeniably real. Let that image cradle you as you drift into sleep. Let the thought that you belong to this rare, perfect world bring you peace. Tomorrow, the question will return, and we will follow it further. But for now, it is enough to rest in the simple, wondrous truth. Earth is just right. And because of that, you are here, for all the balance and beauty of the earth, for all its careful harmony and improbable perfection. There is another mystery that rests even closer to us, one that stares back from every mirror and lingers in every thought. It is the mystery of ourselves, of humanity, of the sudden flame of awareness that seems to burn so brightly within us. For billions of years, the earth was alive but quiet. Oceans swelled with algae, forests stretched with ferns, creatures swam and flew and hunted and grazed. Life flourished, yes, but it was simple in its rhythm, bound to instinct, guided by survival. And then, almost suddenly, something changed. A species arose that looked outward, that asked questions, that shaped stone into tools and symbols into meaning. The story of Earth became the story of consciousness. It is easy to forget how extraordinary this change was. For millions of years, our ancestors walked the plains in small groups, hunting, gathering, surviving by firelight. Their lives were not so different from the lives of animals around them. And then, in a span of time that is only a blink in the scale of the cosmos, their minds expanded. They began to paint on cave walls, leaving not just marks but visions: bison, horses, hands reaching through time. They began to carve symbols, to create rituals, to bury their dead with care, as though they believed life continued beyond death. Language emerged, fragile at first, then flowing. A current that carried stories and knowledge from one generation to the next. What caused this sudden leap? Why, among all the species, did humanity awaken in this way? We are told that it was evolution, a gradual refinement of the brain, a slow sharpening of intelligence, until one day it crossed a threshold. And perhaps that is so. But the speed of it still startles. For millions of years, the earth held no voice, no questioning gaze. And then, in only a few 100,000 years, mere moment compared to the long age of dinosaurs, there were cities, temples, poetry, mathematics, and dreams of the stars. Some believe this leap was sparked by the environment, by the challenges of survival, by the push of necessity. Others suggest that diet, fire, or even climate changes unlocked potential hidden within our species. And then there are those who wonder whether something else intervened, something beyond the ordinary march of biology. They ask whether humanity was nudged, lifted, or perhaps even placed on a path that would lead to awareness far sooner than chance alone would. Dictate this thought echoes in myths from every corner of the world. Many traditions speak of gods who came down and gave fire to humans, or taught them the arts of agriculture, or handed them the gift of knowledge. Prometheus in Greek myth steals fire from the heavens. In Mesopotamian stories, the Anunnaki bring wisdom from the skies. The book of Genesis tells of forbidden fruit, a sudden awareness of good and evil. Again and again, the stories describe an awakening that is not earned slowly, but given suddenly, as if knowledge were a flame passed from one hand to another. Science does not speak in myths. But the resonance between these old tales and the rapid rise of human intelligence is hard to ignore. What if the stories are memories, reshaped across generations, of a leap too sudden to explain? What if humanity did not simply stumble into awareness, but was guided into it? Consider, too, the strangeness of language. No other creature on earth communicates as we do, with such depth, nuance, and creativity. Birds sing, whales call, wolves howl, but humans weave sound into meaning, abstract thought into poetry, memory into story. Language is more than survival. It is imagination given voice. To create language is to create time, to pass the wisdom of one life into the hands of another, to build a continuity of thought that stretches far beyond the lifespan of any individual. Language makes culture possible, and culture makes history possible. In the absence of language, each generation would begin anew, starting again with fire and stone. With language, humanity builds upon itself, climbing ever higher. It is a step so profound that it feels less like an accident and more like a turning point placed deliberately within our path. Then comes the question of art. Why do we paint? Why do we sing? Why do we carve symbols that mean nothing to survival, that feed no hunger and quench no thirst? Other animals are content to live, to eat, to reproduce, to endure. But humanity reaches beyond necessity. We create beauty for its own sake, meaning for its own sake, questions for their own sake. This urge, this restlessness, is what pushes us to look at the stars and ask where we came from. It is what drives us to craft stories, to build temples, to compose symphonies. It is what stirs within us even now, as we wonder whether we were placed here. Technology, too, tells its own tale. In the blink of cosmic time, humanity has moved from flint blades to machines that pierce the heavens, from fire pits to glowing screens that connect voices across oceans. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors sowed the first fields. Only a few thousand years later, we stand on the edge of space, sending probes to distant planets, mapping the very fabric of the universe. The pace is dizzying, almost unnatural. Why should one species, among millions, advance so quickly while others remain bound to instinct? Why should we alone carry this relentless fire of invention? Perhaps it is simply who we are, the result of chance and adaptation. But perhaps it is something more. If life itself was seeded here, carried by dust and stone from the cosmos, then why should consciousness not also be seeded, nudged into being when the time was right? What if intelligence, like life, is not confined to one place, but spread across the stars, waiting for the right conditions to bloom? And what if humanity is only one expression of that pattern, one flower among many in a field too vast to see? It is tempting to think of ourselves as unique, as singular, as the center of the story. Yet the more we contemplate, the more we see that we might be participants in something much larger. If our awareness was a gift, then perhaps it was not meant to make us rulers, but caretakers. Perhaps the fire of knowledge was given so that we might carry it forward, so that we might add our own verse to the endless song of the universe in quiet moments. This thought becomes almost unbearable in its beauty. To be human is to walk between the animal and the divine, to feel hunger and desire, but also wonder and awe, to wake each morning and know that you are conscious, that you can dream, that you can imagine futures that do not yet exist, is to stand in a place that feels almost too extraordinary for accident alone, and yet it could still be chance. That is the paradox we cannot escape. Perhaps all of it language, art, technology, awareness rose through the ordinary laws of nature, guided by nothing but survival and adaptation. But whether chance or intention, accident or placement, the result is the same. Humanity awake beneath the stars, asking questions, telling stories, seeking meaning. So let yourself feel the weight of that tonight. You are part of a species that carries within it the spark of awareness. You belong to a lineage that painted caves, built temples, wrote poetry, dreamed of the heavens. You are the inheritor of a flame that has burned across millennia, a flame that may have been sparked by chance, or perhaps by something greater. Whatever its origin, it is yours to carry, as your breathing slows and your mind drifts. Imagine that first moment when a human looked at fire and saw not just warmth, but possibility. Imagine the first words spoken, the first stories told, the first symbols carved into stone. Imagine the awe of realizing that the stars above are not simply lights, but mysteries calling to us. In those moments, humanity began its journey, a journey that continues now, carried within you, carried within all of us. The leap was sudden, the flame bright, the path uncertain. But the question remains, was it accident, or were we placed here, nudged gently toward awareness by a hand unseen? The answer may be beyond us, hidden in the silence of time. But the wonder is not in the answer. It is in the asking. It is in the awareness itself. It is in you, long before telescopes, long before equations and theories, long before the language of science was even born. Humanity told its stories in symbols and myths, around firelight, in the echoing chambers of caves. Beneath skies crowded with stars, our ancestors whispered tales of beings who came from beyond. They did not speak in terms of galaxies or DNA or panspermia, but their stories carried a resonance that still lingers. They spoke of gods who descended, of teachers who bestowed gifts, of creators who shaped humanity not from chance, but from intention. And though the details differ across cultures, the theme is astonishingly familiar. We were not alone, and we were not entirely of this earth. The Sumerians, among the world's first civilizations, told of the great beings who came from the heavens to shape the destiny of humankind. Their myths describe knowledge granted, structures built, and human labor guided by the will of those who came from above. To modern ears, these tales sound like allegory, but one cannot help but wonder whether the memory of sudden human advancement of writing, agriculture, astronomy was carried into myth as the work of visitors. The gods, they said, were not distant abstractions. They walked among men, guided them, taught them, across the ocean. In the sacred texts of Mesoamerica, the Maya and Aztec peoples also spoke of sky beings, of Quetzal, the feathered serpent who descended from the heavens bringing wisdom, maize, and civilization. He was teacher, guide, and giver of knowledge, depicted not as a destroyer but as a benefactor. The Incas told of Viracocha, the great creator who came from the sea but whose origins were often tied to the stars. Again, we see the same story repeated in a different tongue. Humanity receiving gifts it could not have forged alone in Egypt. The pharaohs were said to descend from the gods, their rule legitimized by a divine connection to the stars. The pyramids, aligned so precisely with celestial patterns, seem less like tombs and more like messages stone written against the sky. The myths of Isis and Osiris, of Ra sailing the solar bark across the heavens, connect human life directly to the movement of celestial powers. The sky was not simply a backdrop. It was the realm from which life and authority flowed. Among the Dogon people of West Africa, traditions spoke of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. Long before modern telescopes revealed it, the Dogon described Sirius not as a single star, but as a system with an invisible companion, Sirius B, a white dwarf star too faint to see with the naked eye. How could such knowledge exist without modern instruments? To them, it was not mystery at all. It was tradition, handed down from ancestors who said the knowledge came from beings who descended from the stars. Even in the stories carried across the Pacific, Polynesian navigators told of their descent from the sky, of gods who gave them the stars not just as myth but as maps, guiding them across the endless ocean. The heavens were not distant, they were family, heritage, home, and in the Hebrew scriptures, one finds the Nephilim, the sons of God who descended to earth and mingled with humanity, producing giants of renown. These passages are enigmatic, often reinterpreted, but they carry the same undertone as so many others. Contact between the human and the celestial, a crossing of boundaries between earth and sky. When gathered together, These myths form a pattern too striking to ignore. Cultures separated by oceans and centuries tell variations of the same story. Beings from the sky gave knowledge, shaped destiny, planted the seeds of civilization. Could it all be coincidence, the natural flowering of imagination that looks upward and longs for connection? Or could these stories be fragments of memory, distorted by time but pointing toward an ancient truth that humanity did not awaken alone, but was nudged, guided, or perhaps even placed here by visitors from beyond? Some modern thinkers propose that myths are more than invention. They may be memory clothed in symbolism, oral history shaped into legend. When a story is repeated across so many cultures, across continents and centuries, it whispers of a common origin. Perhaps long ago, humanity did encounter something extraordinary, something so profound that it could only be remembered as gods descending from the sky. The structures our ancestors built seem to echo this possibility. The great pyramids of Giza, aligned with Orion's belt, the massive stones of Stonehenge, marking solstices with precision, the Nazca lines stretching across the desert of Peru, visible only from above, drawn like messages to the heavens, the megaliths of Baalbek in Lebanon, so enormous that even today the stones baffle engineers. Were these works simply the result of human ingenuity, or were they part of a dialogue with something greater, something that came from above? And yet, perhaps the truth is simpler. Perhaps these myths are the natural reflection of humanity's longing. The stars call to us, vast and mysterious, and we imagine them as homes of gods and ancestors. Perhaps the stories are not memories, but dreams born from the same impulse that drives us to look upward and ask who we are. But even if they are dreams, why are they so similar? Why does the theme repeat in culture after culture, each separated by time and distance? It is here that the line blurs between history and mystery, between myth and memory. We cannot know with certainty whether the Anunnaki, Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha, or the Nephilim were symbols or visitors. What we can know is that humanity has always felt its gaze drawn upward, always sensed a connection between itself and the stars. Whether by imagination or memory, our ancestors left us stories that insist we were not alone. To ponder this is not to dismiss science. Rather, it is to embrace wonder. For even science tells us that life may have come from beyond, carried by comets, or seeded intentionally by intelligence. And myth, in its own way, says the same. Life, knowledge, civilization were given, guided, placed. The languages differ, but the story resonates as you rest beneath your own night sky. Let yourself hear the echo of those old voices. Imagine a Sumerian priest looking upward from the banks of the Euphrates, tracing constellations and whispering of gods descending. Imagine a Maya astronomer standing on a temple stair, reading the stars as though they were the pages of a book. Imagine an Egyptian builder lifting stone toward the heavens, aligning it with the path of Orion. Imagine a Dogon elder pointing to Sirius, telling a story of beings who came from that bright star long ago. These voices, scattered across time, all carry the same undertone. We are part of a story larger than Earth. Perhaps the myths are only dreams. Perhaps they are memories. Perhaps they are both, woven together in the fabric of human imagination. But either way, they shape us. They remind us that our question is not new, that it has been asked for thousands of years. What if we were placed here? Our ancestors asked the same, though in their own words, through their own stories. And tonight, as you listen, you join them in that asking, adding your voice to the chorus that stretches across generations. Close your eyes and picture the night sky filled with gods and ancestors, with serpents and guardians, with teachers and creators. Whether they were real or dreamed, whether they were visitors or visions, they carried the same message. Humanity is not alone. And as you drift into sleep, let that message linger, a soft echo carried on the breath of myth. For as long as we have told stories about the sky, we have also left behind stones, carvings, and monuments that seem to whisper of something more than mere survival. If myths are the breath of memory, then perhaps these ancient works are its bones, tangible and enduring. Across continents, from desert to jungle to mountain, we find structures that raise questions too large to dismiss, puzzles that linger like echoes of a forgotten chapter. They are reminders that the line between imagination and evidence is not always clear, that history itself sometimes reads like a riddle. Consider Göbekli Tepe, a site in southeastern Turkey dated to more than 11,000 years ago, long before the wheel, long before cities or written language. Humans, their carved massive stone pillars, decorated them with animals, symbols, and abstract patterns, and arranged them in circles of precision. According to the timelines of conventional history, these people should have been simple hunter-gatherers, and yet they raised stones weighing tons, planned complex alignments, and created architecture that feels impossibly advanced for its time. Who taught them such skill? Why did they build such a place, and then, strangely, bury it under earth as though hiding it for the future? Travel further south, and the great stones of Baalbek rise in Lebanon. Among the ruins of Roman temples rests a foundation of blocks so enormous that even modern machinery would struggle to move them. Some weigh more than 1,000 tons, cut and placed with precision. Were they the remnants of an older, forgotten civilization, a foundation upon which later builders merely added their temples? Or do they speak of a knowledge, a guidance that was not born entirely of earth? The stones sit silent, as they always have, offering no answers, only their impossible presence. In Egypt, the pyramids command the desert horizon, vast and immovable. Their alignment with the stars of Orion's belt, their geometric precision, their enduring strength, these qualities stir wonder not only in visitors, but also in historians and engineers. How, with copper tools and simple sledges, did a society build monuments of such scale? Theories abound, ramps, levers, armies of workers. But beneath the practical questions lies a deeper one. Why were they built with such cosmic alignment, with such an emphasis on eternity, as though they were messages to the sky itself? Did their builders believe they were answering a call, inscribing their place within a greater story? Crossing the ocean, the Nazca Desert of Peru stretches like a canvas beneath the sun. Etched across its surface are vast lines, spirals, and figures, hummingbirds, monkeys, spiders drawn so large that their full forms can only be seen from high above. From the ground, they are nearly invisible, mere pathways in the dust. Only from the sky does their pattern emerge. Why would a culture with no aircraft draw messages to the heavens? Were they offerings, invitations, or signals? The desert holds its silence, and the lines remain as clear as the day they were made. Defying both erosion and explanation, Stonehenge rises from the English plain, its circle of stones heavy with time. Its builders aligned it with the solstices, marking the rhythm of the sun across the sky. Like Göbekli Tepe, it suggests an early human fascination with the cosmos, a desire to anchor earthly life to celestial patterns. Some see it as a temple, others as a calendar, others still as a place of ritual. Whatever its function, it speaks to an awareness far beyond mere survival. It tells us that humanity's earliest monuments were not just shelters or walls, but messages, alignments, attempts to mirror the heavens. In Central America, the stepped pyramids of the Maya still rise from the jungle. At Chichen Itza, during the equinox, the setting sun casts shadows upon the pyramid of Kukulkan in such a way that a serpent seems to slither down its steps. This merging of architecture and astronomy feels more like theater than Skansa, deliberate design to weave human life with the cosmos. Did the builders imagine themselves reflecting the wisdom of gods from the sky, or were they recording something they had witnessed, something descending in serpentine motion? Even deeper in the jungles of South America, strange artifacts have been found, carvings of figures with what some interpret as helmets, suits, or wings. To archaeologists, they may represent shamans in ritual dress. To others, they look suspiciously like depictions of beings from another world. Perhaps they are symbols, perhaps exaggerations, perhaps memory blurred into art. Yet the pattern repeats, figures associated with power, transformation, and the sky. Again and again, we find anomalies in the archaeological record, moments where human advancement seems to leap forward, where works appear too great for the time, where alignments point not just to earth, but to the heavens. Skeptics argue that we underestimate our ancestors, that necessity and genius explain everything. Indeed, human creativity is extraordinary, capable of achievements far beyond expectation. But even so, certain details remain unsettling. The precision of ancient calendars, more accurate than ours until modern times. The cutting of stones with techniques we cannot fully replicate. The sudden appearance of monumental architecture without gradual development. It is as though humanity sometimes advanced not step by step, but by leaps, as if nudged by something unseen. If life were indeed placed here, or guided here, perhaps these leaps are the signatures of that guidance. Perhaps the monuments are not only works of art and devotion, but markers, reminders, signals left in stone to point back to the stars. If beings once came, or if humanity itself carries memories of being seeded, then perhaps the great works of antiquity are their echo, a silent testimony to contact forgotten but not erased. And yet, even without visitors, the monuments tell us something profound, that from the very beginning, humanity has looked beyond itself, has tied its destiny not to the ground but to the heavens. Whether by memory of contact or by instinct born of starlight, we have always sought to place ourselves within the greater story of the cosmos. To stand in the shadow of a pyramid, to walk the lines of Nazca, to touch the stones of Göbekli Tepe, is to feel the weight of that longing. It is to feel that perhaps our ancestors, too, asked the same question we now ask. What if we were placed here? As night falls and you drift deeper into thought, imagine yourself walking among these ancient stones. The air is cool, the stars spread wide above you, the monuments rising like guardians of forgotten truths. You cannot know with certainty why they were built, who carved them, or what purpose they served. But you can feel their pull, the way they tie earth to sky, past to present, myth to mystery. And in that feeling lies a quiet invitation to wonder, to ask, to listen. Perhaps one day we will uncover evidence that confirms or denies these suspicions. Perhaps we will find that Panspermia left traces, that directed seeding was real, that visitors did indeed walk among us. Or perhaps the stones will remain silent, Their message meant not to give answers, but to keep us asking. Either way, the monuments endure, patient and eternal, waiting beneath the stars. They are the silent companions of our question. And as you let sleep take you, they stand watch, whispering of a time when humanity and the heavens were closer than we remember. In the 20th century, as science advanced into realms our ancestors could scarcely imagine, one of the most brilliant minds of modern biology found himself confronting a puzzle so deep that it led him to consider ideas that seemed to belong more to philosophy than to the laboratory. Francis Crick, celebrated for co-discovering the double helix structure of DNA, was no stranger to revolutionary thinking. Alongside James Watson, he had helped reveal the very code of life, the spiral ladder upon which inheritance and identity are written. Yet even as the beauty of the molecule unfolded, Crick recognized something unsettling. The complexity of DNA was so immense, so elegantly structured, that its sudden emergence on Earth seemed profoundly unlikely. It did not look like the product of chance alone, not within the narrow window of time our planet offered. And so Crick began to ask questions that would take him far beyond the conventional boundaries of biology. The theory that occupied his thoughts came to be known as directed panspermia. Unlike the broader concept of panspermia, which suggests that life may have been scattered naturally across the cosmos through comets, meteors, and interstellar dust, Crick's version was deliberate. He proposed that intelligent beings, perhaps ancient, might have intentionally seeded life on Earth, sending spores or microorganisms across the stars, embedding them within a vessel and directing them to fertile planets. This was not mere chance, but design, not accident, but purpose. It was a daring suggestion, especially from a Nobel laureate, and it caused ripples in the scientific community that still linger. Today, why would Crick consider such an extraordinary possibility? Part of the reason lay in the apparent improbability of life's beginnings. DNA, with its intricate coding and self-replicating properties, seemed to advance to have arisen spontaneously in the brief span between the Earth's cooling and the earliest appearance of life. While chemistry could explain the formation of simple molecules, the leap to fully functioning genetic systems appeared monumental. Crick calculated that the odds were so small that it was difficult to imagine it occurring solely within our planet's early soup of chemicals and lightning storms. If life seemed too unlikely here, perhaps its origin lay elsewhere, and perhaps its arrival was not random. Crick was cautious in how he presented the idea. He did not claim to have evidence, nor did he suggest that humanity was the result of some grand cosmic plan. Rather, he offered directed panspermia as a hypothesis worth considering, a framework to explain how life might have spread more plausibly than by sheer coincidence. He envisioned, in sober scientific language, the possibility that advanced civilizations might have engineered bacterial spores hardy, resilient, capable of surviving deep space and launch them across the void, knowing that somewhere, on some young planet, they might take root. To Crick, this seemed no less rational than assuming that the miracle of DNA had blossomed by chance within the narrow window Earth provided. His core. Leslie Orgel shared this curiosity, and together they published their thoughts in 1973. The paper was not hidden in obscurity, but appeared in a respected scientific journal, drawing both fascination and skepticism. Many dismissed it as fanciful, as an unnecessary complication, invoking aliens when chemistry might one day suffice. Others, however, recognized the courage in Crick's willingness to confront improbability head-on, to suggest that our beginnings may be more mysterious than we like to admit. There is something haunting in the image. Crick's idea conjures a distant civilization, long before us, sending seeds of life across the stars like messages in bottles upon a cosmic ocean. Perhaps they did so in hope, perhaps in desperation, perhaps as an act of preservation as their own world faltered. It would mean that Earth is not an isolated miracle, but part of a continuum, one chapter in a story of life's persistence against time and distance. It would mean that our ancestors are not only the creatures who crawled from the sea, but beings from another sun. Their legacy written not in stone, but in our very cells, of course. The scientific community has largely favored more grounded explanations. Research into abiogenesis, the study of how life might arise from non-life, continues to explore pathways by which simple molecules could self-organize, replicate, and evolve into the complexity we know today. Advances in chemistry and molecular biology have revealed potential scenarios in which RNA, a simpler cousin of DNA, might have formed first, carrying both genetic information and catalytic functions. Yet even these hypotheses leave many gaps, many mysteries unsolved. The leap from chemistry to biology remains vast, and the question of probability still hovers. Crick himself did not cling to directed panspermia as dogma. Over time, he acknowledged that the origins of life might eventually be explained through natural processes we do not yet understand. Still, the fact that he entertained the possibility at all is striking. It reveals both the humility and the boldness of a scientist willing to admit that some questions may exceed the reach of current knowledge. In raising the idea, he opened the door for others to ponder not only the mechanisms of life's origin, but also the deeper implications. If life can be seeded, if intelligence can carry biology across the stars, what does that say about our place in the universe? There is a poetic symmetry in imagining that we, who now send probes to Mars and plan missions to distant moons, may one day practice directed panspermia ourselves. If we colonize the stars, if we send microbes to terraform barren worlds, then Crick's vision becomes prophecy. We would be the gardeners of distant planets, the sowers of new ecosystems, the very beings he once speculated about. In that light, directed panspermia is not just a hypothesis about our past, but a mirror of our possible future. Perhaps what Crick saw was less a theory of origin than a foreshadowing of destiny. And so, the idea lingers at the edge of science, half in the realm of speculation, half in the realm of possibility. It is not proven, but neither is it entirely dismissed. Like the monuments of the ancients, it stands as a marker, a reminder that our origins are not yet fully known. Whether life began in Earth's oceans or in the laboratories of distant stars, the question remains open, beckoning us to explore further, to look not only inward to our molecules, but outward to the heavens. As you let these thoughts drift over you, imagine the quiet of space, the vast dark sea between suns. Picture a vessel, small and unremarkable, carrying within it the most precious cargo, seeds of life invisible to the naked eye, yet capable of blooming into forests, oceans, and mines. Imagine it sailing for millions of years, silent, patient, until at last it finds a new home, a blue world waiting to awaken. Perhaps this is our story. Perhaps in our cells we carry not only Earth's history, but the memory of a journey that began light years away in that vision. The boundaries between science and myth blur, and the question of directed panspermia becomes less about proof and more about wonder. It invites us to see ourselves not as isolated creatures, but but as part of a grand continuum. Life sowing life, stars seeding stars. Francis Crick, in daring to voice the improbable, gave us a gift, a reminder that even the most rational minds sometimes glimpse the poetry of the cosmos. Whether true or not, his idea whispers that we are not alone, that our story may be older and wider than we can yet comprehend. And as you sink deeper into rest, you may feel the quiet kinship with the stars, as though in your very breathing you echo a journey that began long before Earth, long before time as we know it, a journey written in the spiral of DNA, a journey still unfolding, for as long as human voices have risen in song or whispered in story. The heavens have been woven into the fabric of myth, long before telescopes or equations, before DNA was imagined or atoms understood. People looked upward and felt that the sky was alive with meaning. The sun, the moon, the stars, and the wandering planets became gods, ancestors, guides, and watchers. In the great tapestry of myths passed down from culture to culture, there is a recurring theme that feels eerily resonant with the question of panspermia, the idea that life itself, or the spark that animates it, came from above. In the myths of Mesopotamia, among the earliest civilizations, tales speak of beings descending from the heavens to shape humanity. The Sumerians wrote of the Anunnaki, figures who arrived from the sky and brought knowledge, order, and even the creation of humankind itself. Whether gods or visitors, their stories framed human life not as an isolated accident, but as a gift or intervention from beyond. The cuneiform tablets etched thousands of years ago may be mythology, allegory, or something more, but they remind us that our ancestors often looked upward for the origin of their own existence. In Egypt, myths tell of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, divine figures linked not only to the cycles of life and death, but also to the stars themselves. The pyramids were aligned to Orion, a constellation associated with Osiris, god of resurrection. To the Egyptians, their pharaohs were not merely rulers, but beings connected to the heavens, descending from divine lineage and returning to the stars upon death. Human life was thus bound inextricably to celestial life, each soul a fragment of something that had come from beyond the earth. Traveling eastward, we find in India the Vedic texts, ancient scriptures filled with references to beings descending from the sky in luminous chariots called vimanas. These aerial vehicles are described in detailed machines that carried gods, sages, and sometimes weapons of immense power. While many scholars interpret vimanas as symbolic or poetic, their presence in texts thousands of years old is striking. They describe beings who come from above, bearing both wisdom and danger, shaping the destinies of humans through their visits. In the cosmic cycles of Hindu thought, the universe itself is born, destroyed, and reborn in endless rhythm, suggesting that life is not confined to a single world but woven across the vastness of space and time. Among the ancient Greeks, myths often told of gods descending from Olympus to mingle with mortals. Prometheus, the Titan, stole fire from the heavens and gave it to humanity, igniting not only warmth but knowledge, creativity, and the spark of civilization itself. In this story, the gift that sets humans apart does not arise from within, but is brought from above, a theme that echoes the idea of seeding. Prometheus is both benefactor and transgressor, punished for his generosity, yet celebrated as the one who gave life its higher flame in the Americas. The myths of the Maya and Aztec civilizations also speak of origins tied to the sky. The Maya Papal Va tells of gods who descended to shape humankind from maize, the sacred crop. The Aztecs believed that their sun god had sacrificed himself to ignite the current age, a gesture that placed celestial sacrifice at the heart of earthly existence. Their temples and calendars reflected a cosmic order, one in which humanity was not separate from the heavens, but born from them, dependent upon them, and destined to return to them. The Dogon people of West Africa preserve a mythology that has fascinated anthropologists. For generations, they speak of beings called the Namo, amphibious entities who came from the star Sirius, bringing knowledge and guidance. Even more astonishing, their traditions contain details about Sirius that modern science only confirmed in the last centuries, such as the companion star invisible to the naked eye. How such knowledge entered their culture remains a mystery, fueling speculation that perhaps these myths preserve more than allegory. In Polynesian traditions, the islands themselves are said to be gifts of the gods raised from the sea, and the first ancestors were believed to have descended from the sky in canoes of light. Across the Pacific, cultures described their genealogies as stretching upward to celestial realms, linking their families not only to earthly parents but to stars. The sky was not distant but intimate, a place of origin and eventual return, even in the stories told among indigenous peoples of North America. There are countless references to star beings, sky people, or celestial visitors who shaped humanity's journey. Some tribes tell of ancestors who came from the Pleiades, while others speak of teachers descending in bright lights to share wisdom about harmony with the earth. These myths are diverse, each culture unique in its telling. Yet the motif is the same: life touched, guided, or given by forces from the sky. What do we make of these stories? To skeptics, they are simply metaphors, expressions of human awe at the heavens. Allegories of creation woven in symbolic language. People have always sought to explain their origins, and the sky, with its vastness and mystery, was the most natural canvas upon which to paint such narratives. But to others, these myths are not merely imagination. They may be cultural memories, distorted through generations, of real events, encounters with beings who came from beyond, or echoes of humanity's deeper cosmic origin. It is striking how often these myths overlap, despite emerging from continents separated by oceans. Whether in the deserts of Mesopotamia, the temples of Egypt, the mountains of Greece, the jungles of Central America, or the villages of Africa, the motif persists. The spark of life, or the knowledge that shapes life, comes from above. It is as though, across cultures, humanity has carried a shared intuition that our story does not begin in the soil beneath our feet, but in the stars above our heads. Modern science, cautious and methodical, may not endorse these myths as literal truth. Yet even scientists sometimes admit that mythology can preserve fragments of ancient memory. Just as flood myths around the world may reflect collective remembrance of rising seas after the Ice Age, so too might myths of beings from the sky reflect something less allegorical. If life was seeded, if visitors did once come, perhaps their memory lingered not in written records, but in story, passed down in the only language early humans had, the language of myth, symbol, and ritual. And even if no beings ever descended, these myths still tell us something essential about ourselves. They show that from the beginning, we have sensed that our lives are tied to the cosmos, that we are not merely earthbound, but part of a greater, unfolding mystery. Our ancestors saw in the stars not only beauty but kinship. They looked up and felt that in those lights there was something familiar, something connected to their own breath and blood. Whether by instinct or by memory, they recognized that life and sky are inseparable. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine the voices of those ancient storytellers gathered around fires beneath a canopy of stars. Hear them speaking of gods descending, of gifts from the heavens, of ancestors who came from beyond. Picture their faces lit by firelight, their eyes reflecting the constellations, their words weaving the same question that still lingers in us today. What if life came from the stars? Perhaps those myths were not mere imagination, but echoes of a truth we have only begun to rediscover. And even if they were dreams, they are dreams that point us upward, that keep alive the possibility that we are children of a universe far older and wider than we can yet know. When we look at the story of life on Earth through the lens of science, we expect a tale of gradual change. Evolution, as Charles Darwin described it, works through tiny variations accumulating over countless generations, each small adaptation offering a slight advantage until, slowly, new forms of life emerge. The picture painted in classrooms is one of steady progress, fish developing limbs, reptiles evolving into mammals, primates eventually becoming human. But when we look closely at the fossil record and the story of our species, the rhythm of evolution is not always steady. It is punctuated by sudden, dramatic changes that seem out of step with the slow pace we might expect. One of the most famous examples is the Cambrian explosion, a period roughly 540 million years ago when life on Earth shifted almost overnight in geological terms. For billions of years before this event, life was simple single-celled organisms, algae and a few soft-bodied creatures drifting in ancient seas. Then, within a span of perhaps 20 million years, an instant in planetary history, the oceans filled with complexity. Creatures with shells, exoskeletons, eyes, and intricate body plans appeared, representing nearly every major animal group alive today. Trilobites crawled across sea floors, jellyfish floated, and the first predators hunted with teeth and claws. It was as though life suddenly accelerated, as though an unseen hand had pressed fast forward. Scientists continue to debate why this leap happened. Some suggest environmental triggers. Levels rose, allowing larger, more complex bodies. Others point to genetic innovation, such as the evolution of Hox genes, which control body structure. But the rapidity and breadth of the Cambrian explosion raise questions. Why did so many innovations happen at once? Why not earlier? Why not later? To those who entertain the idea of panspermia, this moment might represent not just natural processes, but an infusion, a seeding of new genetic possibilities introduced from beyond Earth. This pattern of sudden leaps does not end with the Cambrian. Throughout Earth's history, life has advanced in bursts. After mass extinctions, when most species vanish, the survivors sometimes diversify at breathtaking speed. When the dinosaurs disappeared 66 million years ago, mammals, once small and timid, began to thrive. Within a few million years, they had spread into every niche: grazers, hunters, flyers, swimmers. It was as if the absence of dinosaurs opened a doorway, and evolution rushed through with urgency. Some see these bursts as opportunity meeting possibility, but others wonder whether nudges genetic or environmental helped push life along. The story becomes even more intriguing when we reach humanity. For millions of years, hominins, our ancient ancestors, lived much like other primates. They walked upright, made simple tools, and survived in small groups. Then, in what feels like a blink, everything changed. Roughly 50,000 years ago, humans began painting on cave walls, burying their dead with ritual and creating music. Language blossomed, societies formed, and technology followed. Within a short span, humans leaped ahead of every other species, transforming from one animal among many to the dominant force on the planet. Anthropologists call this the Great Leap Forward. Its cause remains debated. Some attribute it to genetic changes in the brain, perhaps involving language or symbolic thought. Others credit cultural transmission knowledge, building generation by generation until a threshold was crossed. But why then? Why not earlier or later? Dolphins, elephants, and other intelligent creatures with large brains did not take the same leap. Something unique happened to us, and it happened fast. For those who wonder about the possibility of placement, it is tempting to see this as another infusion, another nudge in our evolution. Perhaps intentional, perhaps accidental, but undeniably transformative. Even within recorded history, the leaps continue. Agriculture emerged around 12,000 years ago, allowing humans to settle, build villages, and grow civilizations. Writing, mathematics, and astronomy followed. Then, in just the last few centuries, the pace accelerated beyond comprehension. From fire to flight, from stone tools to quantum physics, the trajectory has been exponential. It is difficult to reconcile the vast slowness of natural evolution with the breathtaking speed of cultural evolution. In the time it takes nature to refine a wing or a claw, we have reshaped entire landscapes, built machines that fly, and even launched probes beyond our solar system. Some scientists frame these leaps as inevitable once intelligence reaches a certain threshold. Others point to chance-random mutations, environmental pressures, or cultural tipping points. But there is an alternative perspective, one that threads through myth and speculation. Perhaps these leaps are signatures of guidance. Perhaps they are echoes of panspermia, not only at life's beginning but continuing across time, nudging life toward complexity, toward consciousness, toward civilization. Francis Crick, one of the discoverers of DNA's structure, entertained such a thought. He wondered whether life was deliberately seeded here by an advanced civilization, not only at its origin but perhaps through repeated interventions. In his theory of directed panspermia, life is not just scattered randomly but cultivated, guided like a gardener tending a field. The leaps in evolution could then be the fingerprints of such gardener's moments, when the crop was watered, when seeds were added, when the direction was adjusted. Of course, skeptics remind us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. There is no fossil that declares, "We were seeded." There is no genetic marker that says, "This was placed." But evidence in science is often subtle. The leaps themselves, the Cambrian explosion, the rise of mammals, the great leap forward in human history are anomalies, patterns that do not fit comfortably within slow, gradual change. They may not prove intervention, but they invite the question, and perhaps the most striking leap is not physical at all, but consciousness itself. At some point, our brains did more than think about survival. They began to wonder. They produced art, music, and morality. They pondered the stars, asked about meaning, and dreamed of gods and galaxies. Why should a survival machine, honed by evolution, waste energy on poetry or philosophy? Why should neurons care about beauty, justice, or eternity? These leaps of mind seem excessive, almost extravagant, as though we were equipped for more than survival. Some suggest this is precisely the signature of placement, not just that we exist, but that we exist with capacities that stretch beyond necessity, beyond instinct, into realms of imagination and spirit. As you listen, consider the leaps in your own life. Moments when change came, not gradually, but suddenly, when growth felt less like slow unfolding and more like a spark, a breakthrough, a transformation. In our personal stories, as in the story of life itself, leaps are what define us. They carry us forward, reshaping who we are in ways we could never have predicted. Perhaps the universe works in the same way. Perhaps it is not a slow, steady climb, but a series of steps, sudden and surprising, each one bringing us closer to a mystery we are only beginning to glimpse. And so, when we ask whether we were placed here, we are not only asking about beginnings, we are asking about these leaps. Did they happen by chance, by necessity, or by design? Were we simply lucky in the lottery of evolution, or were we guided, nudged, tended like seeds in a cosmic field? The answer remains open, but the question itself transforms how we see our story. For if we were placed, then every leap, every sudden flowering of life, is not just biology, but a whisper from beyond, an invitation to wonder. To understand humanity, we must go beyond bones and tools. Fossils can tell us when our ancestors walked upright, when they used fire, when they shaped stone into blades. But they cannot fully explain when we began to dream. Somewhere in the arc of our story, there emerged a flame unlike any other, consciousness. This flame illuminated not just the world around us, but also the inner world within us. And in its light, humans began to do something extraordinary. We began to create. On the walls of caves, hidden deep in the earth, are marks of this awakening. The paintings of Chauvet and Lascaux, tens of thousands of years old, show horses, lions, mammoths, and figures that blur the boundary between human and spirit. These images are not mere decorations. They are windows into a mind that imagined, that saw meaning beyond survival. The people who painted them were not only hunters and gatherers. They were storytellers, artists, and dreamers. With ochre and charcoal, they inscribed their presence onto stone, leaving behind not just evidence of life, but evidence of thought. What need did art fulfill? From a strictly evolutionary perspective, survival is what drives behavior. Yet art does not feed the body, does not shelter us from the storm. To sing a song or carve a figurine is, in the most practical sense, unnecessary. And yet, from the dawn of our species, we have done these things with passion and devotion. We have sung to the skies, shaped clay into gods, and written poems to the stars. Some scientists argue that creativity is an extension of survival. Songs might bond communities. Stories might preserve knowledge. Rituals might strengthen identity. But there remains an excess, a surplus in what we do, as though human creativity reaches beyond what is required. Consider music. Across every culture, across every era, humans have made music. We have built drums from animal skins, flutes from bone, strings from sinew, a lullaby sung to a child, a chant rising in unison, a symphony echoing in a great hall. All of these carry something deeply human, something that resonates not only in our ears, but in our very sense of self. Music moves us, stirs emotions, evokes memories, connects us to each other in ways language alone cannot. Why should patterns of sound mean so much to us? Some argue that music is simply pleasure, tied to the brain's reward circuits. Yet the universality and power of music hint at something deeper. Perhaps it is not only entertainment, but a kind of cosmic language, a way of aligning ourselves with patterns older and greater than we know. Art and music are not alone. From the beginning, humans have asked questions that extend far beyond survival. Who are we? Where do we come from? What lies beyond death? These questions have shaped mythologies, religions, philosophies, and sciences. The first humans who gazed at the stars may have seen hunters, gods, or spirits in the patterns of light. Later, they traced those patterns into calendars, navigation systems, and cosmologies. Always, we have looked upward and outward, searching for meaning beyond ourselves. Survival explains eating, sleeping, and reproducing. It does not fully explain the desire to know why we exist. It is here that panspermia becomes more than a scientific hypothesis. If life came from elsewhere, if we were seeded, then perhaps the spark of consciousness itself was part of the design. Perhaps we were not only meant to live, but to wonder, to create, to imagine. Our capacity for art and inquiry might then be signatures of that origin, echoes of something placed within us. Just as DNA carries instructions for building the body, perhaps consciousness carries instructions for exploring meaning. Some thinkers suggest that consciousness is not merely a byproduct of the brain, but a fundamental property of the universe, like gravity or light. In this view, our minds are not isolated, but are windows into a larger field of awareness. Creativity, then, is not simply neurons firing, but a participation in something greater, a channeling of patterns woven into the fabric of existence. When an artist paints, when a musician plays, when a philosopher contemplates, perhaps they are tapping into that universal field, translating whispers from beyond into human form. The suddenness of consciousness in our evolutionary story makes this idea even more striking. For millions of years, our ancestors made tools little different from one generation to the next. Then, almost without warning, art, music, and symbolism appear. This leap, the great leap forward, remains one of the great mysteries of anthropology. Some believe a genetic mutation unlocked new capacities in the brain. Others suggest culture reached a tipping point. But if we allow ourselves to imagine, it could also be seen as a gift, a seed planted in the soil of human potential, one that blossomed into imagination and awareness. What is most remarkable is how consciousness reaches beyond necessity. A bird sings to mark territory, but humans compose symphonies. An ape uses a stick to reach termites, but humans build telescopes to glimpse galaxies billions of light years away. These acts are not explained by survival alone. They suggest that humans carry within them a drive to transcend, to reach beyond the horizon of what is needed, to touch the unknown. This yearning, some might argue, is itself evidence of a larger story, one that ties us to the stars. Even today, in the midst of technology and science, creativity continues to define us. We write novels that transport us into imagined worlds. We build cathedrals that reach toward heaven. We design machines that capture the invisible, turning radio waves into music, photons into images, and equations into bridges that span rivers. Each act of creation is a testament to a spark within us, a spark that refuses to be extinguished by practicality. This spark, this flame of consciousness and creativity, has transformed the earth. No other species has altered the planet so profoundly. We have reshaped landscapes, tamed rivers, built cities that glow at night like constellations on land. We have encoded our knowledge in books, in machines, in digital memory that may outlast our own bodies. And now, we have begun to reach outward again, sending spacecraft to other planets, listening for signals from distant stars. The same curiosity that led our ancestors to paint on cave walls now drives us to explore the cosmos. It is as though the seed of consciousness, once planted, has grown beyond Earth, reaching back toward the skies from which it may have come. But with this flame comes a responsibility. Consciousness is. It allows us to create beauty, but also to destroy. It gives us the power to heal, but also to harm. Our imagination can build both symphonies and weapons, both cathedrals and prisons. If consciousness was placed within us, it was not given lightly. It carries weight. It demands choices. It asks us not only to wonder where we come from, but also to decide where we are going. And so, as we reflect on the spark of creativity, we may see in it both a gift and a challenge. If we are seeds from the stars, then our art, our music, our philosophies are the blossoms of that seed. They are signs that life is not only about surviving, but about becoming, about reaching towards something greater. Each song, each painting, each idea is a thread connecting us not only to our ancestors, but to the cosmos itself. The next time you stand before a painting, or hear a melody that stirs your heart, or lose yourself in a story, remember that these are not accidents of evolution. They are miracles of consciousness. They are proof that within the human being is a capacity that defies necessity, that stretches toward infinity. They are whispers of our possible origin, traces of a destiny that might lie among the stars. And as you drift into sleep, perhaps you can carry this thought with you, that every dream you dream, every image your mind conjures, is part of this great flame. In dreaming, we continue the work of creation. We participate in the same mystery that once painted caves, that once asked questions of the stars, that now wonders whether we are alone. If panspermia is true, then our creativity is not only human, it is cosmic. It is the universe itself, reflecting on its own existence through us. When we gaze into the night sky, we cannot help but wonder whether we are alone. The stars, each a sun, each with the possibility of planets circling in silent orbit, confront us with the immensity of possibility. The sheer number defies comprehension. Our own galaxy, the Milky Way, holds hundreds of billions of stars, and beyond it lie hundreds of billions of galaxies. To imagine that life arose only here, on one small planet circling one ordinary star, feels almost improbable. If life can emerge once, might it not emerge again and again across the cosmos, like seeds scattered in every direction? Scientists searching for life beyond Earth often begin with biology. They look for planets with liquid water, with stable atmospheres, with the right distance from their stars. They study extremophiles creatures that thrive in boiling springs, deep oceans, and frozen wastelands, to show that life can adapt to conditions once thought impossible. If life is resilient here, it might be resilient elsewhere. But beyond biology, there is another question, not only whether life exists, but whether consciousness exists elsewhere too. Are there minds beyond our own, minds that think, imagine, and dream? If panspermia is true, then perhaps the question becomes even more intriguing. Life might not arise in isolation, by accident, on each world. Instead, it may be seeded, shared, spread like pollen through the galaxy. If this is so, then the creatures who look up at their skies on distant planets might be, in some profound way, related to us. Their DNA might echo ours. Their leaps of consciousness might mirror our own. They might paint, sing, and wonder just as we do, each in their own way, each carrying a spark from the same cosmic origin. Consider the possibility of civilizations far older than ours. Humanity's technological age is barely a few centuries old. Our species itself has been here only for a blink of geological time. If the universe is more than 13 billion years old, then other civilizations could have arisen millions, even billions, of years before us. Imagine the leaps of consciousness they might have experienced, the arts they might have created, the sciences they might have discovered. Where we paint with pigments, they might paint with light. Where we sing with breath, they might sing with stars. Their creativity might stretch into dimensions we cannot even conceive. Some suggest that if such civilizations exist, they might be the very ones responsible for panspermia. Perhaps, long ago, they chose to spread life as a way of ensuring continuity, a way of planting themselves into the universe. Just as a tree scatters seeds into the wind, perhaps advanced civilizations scatter genetic material across galaxies, knowing that most will fall into barren soil, but some will take root. If Earth is one such seed, then we are not only children of this planet, but children of a larger lineage, one that extends beyond the stars. And so, our search for extraterrestrial intelligence may be, at its heart, a search for family. We listen for radio signals, we scan the skies for patterns, we send probes outward with messages encoded in golden records, all in the hope that someone, somewhere, will answer. What drives this effort is not only curiosity, but longing for connection, for kinship, for the reassurance that we are not alone in our awareness. The silence so far is puzzling. Despite decades of searching, no signal has broken through the static of the cosmos. This puzzle is often called the Fermi paradox. If the universe is so vast, and life so possible, where is everybody? Some suggest civilizations destroy themselves before they can spread. Others argue that the distances are too great, the signals too faint. But perhaps the silence is not absence. Perhaps it is waiting. Perhaps it is not that others are not there, but that the time is not yet right for us to hear them. Or, perhaps, more intriguingly, we have already heard them in ways we do not yet recognize in the very life that blooms on Earth, in the very consciousness that awakens in us. If civilizations older than ours seeded life here, then their message may not be in radio waves, but in the code of our DNA. Written into the spiral of life might be patterns, signatures, even instructions. Some scientists have speculated that genetic material might contain embedded messages, like a cosmic letter waiting to be read. Whether literal or metaphorical, the idea is powerful, that within us lies not only the story of Earth, but the story of stars. The possibility of kinship with distant civilizations changes how we see ourselves. It expands the idea of family, of belonging. We are not only part of a species, a nation, or a planet. We may be part of a cosmic lineage, connected across time and space to beings who once walked their own worlds, who once gazed at their own skies and wondered. Their leaps of consciousness may have paralleled ours. Their art may have carried the same longing, the same search for meaning. To imagine this is to feel less alone, less isolated in the immensity of the cosmos. And yet, there is also humility in this thought. If there are civilizations older and wiser than ours, then we are still children in comparison. Our wars, our divisions, our struggles may seem to them like the quarrels of a young species, still learning how to wield the flame of consciousness without being consumed by it. Perhaps they wait for us to grow, to show that we can carry the gift responsibly, before making themselves known. Perhaps the silence is not rejection, but patience. The patience of a parent waiting for a child to mature. There is comfort, too, in the possibility that we are not unique in our struggles. If other civilizations have walked similar paths, then they too may have faced questions of survival, of meaning, of how to balance creativity with destruction. They too may have felt the burden of consciousness, the weight of choices that shape entire worlds. And perhaps they too have reached upward in search of kinship, sending their own signals, scattering their own seeds, hoping that somewhere, someday, they would be found. To imagine other civilizations is not only to dream of distant beings, but to reflect on ourselves. In them, we may see a mirror of what we are, of what we might become, of what we might avoid. They remind us that our story is still unfolding, that our leaps of consciousness are part of a larger pattern. Whether or not we make contact, the very act of searching changes us. It binds us together as a species, united in curiosity, in hope, in longing. Perhaps one day, across the great silence, a signal will arrive. Perhaps it will be a simple greeting, a pattern of pulses, a mathematical sequence. Perhaps it will be more, a gift of knowledge, a reminder that we are part of something greater. Or perhaps we will never receive a signal at all, but instead discover our kinship in the very fact that we share the same universe, the same mystery, the same longing. Until then, we continue to look up, to listen, to wonder. Each night, as stars wheel across the sky, they remind us that the story of life is not confined to Earth. The leaps of consciousness we have experienced may not be ours alone. Somewhere, on a distant world, another being may be painting, singing, dreaming, wondering, and perhaps, in some way beyond our understanding, we are already connected. From the moment we first learned to strike sparks from stone, humanity has been on a path defined by technology. At first, the changes were small, almost imperceptible. Sharper blades, sturdier shelters, fires that burned longer into the night. Yet each step carried us forward, preparing us for leaps that would transform not only our survival but our very identity. When we look back now, the line from fire to spacecraft may seem long, but in the sweep of cosmic time, it is astonishingly short. It is as though once the flame of consciousness was lit, it sought tools as its expression, and those tools became extensions of the mind itself. Fire was the first great revolution. With it, we could cook food, making it more digestible, unlocking energy for our growing brains. With fire, we could warm the cold, fend off predators, and gather together in safety. Around firelight, stories were told, songs were sung, and communities were bound. Fire was not only survival, it was the beginning of culture. To master fire was to step beyond mere adaptation and begin to shape the environment intentionally. It was the first whisper of the technological trajectory to come. From fire came agriculture. We learned to plant seeds, to domesticate animals, to bend the rhythms of nature to our needs. Villages grew into cities, and cities into civilizations. With agriculture came time for specialization for artisans, priests, builders, and thinkers. Human societies became more than groups of survivors. They became networks of creativity and ambition. The leap was not only practical, but conceptual. To plant a seed is to imagine a future. Agriculture was, in a sense, humanity's first great act of faith. Then came writing. At first, simple marks on clay or stone, keeping track of harvests and trade. But soon, writing expanded into myth, law, poetry, and philosophy. Words allowed knowledge to transcend the limits of memory, to cross generations, to travel across distance. A thought could now outlast the thinker. Writing was more than communication. It was immortality. It preserved ideas, allowing them to grow, to combine, to inspire. Each stroke of ink was a step along the trajectory of the mind reaching outward. Metals followed bronze, then iron. With them came weapons, but also plows, wheels, and machines. Human hands shaped matter itself, bending it to design. Then, in the quiet centuries, mathematics and astronomy emerged. Humans charted the stars, predicted eclipses, calculated the size of the earth. We began to understand not only how to live, but how the universe itself worked. The cosmos was no longer a mystery to be feared, but a puzzle to be solved. Each leap was faster than the last. For millennia, change was slow. A stone tool made 500,000 years ago looked little different from one made 300,000 years later. But once the momentum of technology began, the pace quickened. In the span of a few thousand years, we moved from pyramids to cathedrals, from sails to steam, from ink to electricity. The leaps became so rapid that each generation lived in a world unrecognizable to the last. The Industrial Revolution was perhaps the most dramatic acceleration. Steam engines powered factories, railroads spanned continents, and cities swelled with people and machines. Humanity, once bound by muscle and wind, now commanded fire in engines, harnessed rivers in turbines, and captured lightning in wires. The world became interconnected. Distance shrank. Time itself seemed to quicken. From there, the leaps became exponential. Electricity gave birth to telegraphs, telephones, radios. The human voice could now travel across oceans in an instant. Knowledge, once locked in libraries, spread through newspapers, then broadcasts, then the glowing screens of our own age. The invention of computers compressed centuries of calculation into seconds. The trajectory bent upward, sharper and sharper, as though propelled by an unseen force. And then, another leap, we left Earth. In 1961, a human being first broke free of gravity's grasp and entered orbit. 8 years later, humans walked on the moon. What had once been myth, the dream of gods and poets, became reality. Humanity became a spacefaring species. Even now, probes sail through interstellar space, carrying with them golden records etched with our voices, our music, our greetings, destined, perhaps, to be found by others. What is striking in this story is not only the speed, but the direction. Our technology does not only move inward, making life easier, safer, more efficient. It also moves outward, toward connection, toward expansion, toward the stars. From firelight to satellites, from cave paintings to space telescopes. The arc bends consistently toward exploration, communication, and transcendence. It is as though technology itself is an instinct, guiding us not merely to survive, but to reach. For those who wonder about panspermia, this trajectory is suggestive. If life was seeded here, perhaps it carries within it not only the code for survival, but the impulse for expansion. Just as a seed grows toward the light, perhaps humanity grows toward the cosmos, driven by an inner compulsion to return to where it began. Our technologies are not only tools, they are wings. They are the means by which life fulfills its destiny, moving from world to world, carrying consciousness across the vastness. Some even suggest that this trajectory is universal. If other civilizations exist, their paths may have bent toward fire, writing, machines, and eventually the stars. Perhaps there is a law of consciousness, a cosmic rhythm that pushes life towards certain thresholds. Each leap fire, agriculture, writing, electricity, spaceflight might be steps along a universal staircase. If so, then humanity is not alone in its journey. We are walking a path walked by others before us, and perhaps others still to come. The thought is humbling and exhilarating. To imagine that our spacecraft, small and fragile as they are echoes of journeys taken by civilizations long gone, or perhaps long thriving elsewhere, is to feel part of something immense. Our rockets may be crude compared to theirs, our signals faint, but the impulse is the same, to reach outward, to connect, to know. But the trajectory also carries danger. Each leap brings power, and power can destroy as well as create. Fire can warm but also burn. Agriculture can feed but also exhaust the soil. Machines can liberate but also enslave. Nuclear energy can light cities or annihilate them. Our technological leaps have always carried this double edge. The question is whether we can wield them wisely enough to continue the trajectory without falling into ruin. This too may be part of the cosmic story. Perhaps other civilizations have faced the same test. Some may have failed, extinguished by their own power. Others may have succeeded, finding balance, becoming gardeners of life rather than its destroyers. If panspermia is true, then those who seeded us may themselves be survivors of such tests, passing along not only life, but the potential to learn from their own journeys. Our task is to decide whether we will follow their example, repeat their mistakes. In this light, technology is not neutral. It is a mirror of who we are and who we choose to be. Every leap reflects not only our ingenuity, but our values. The way we use fire, writing, machines, and energy reveals what we seek: domination or connection, destruction or creation. The trajectory toward the stars is not only a technical challenge, but a moral one. To join a cosmic community, if one exists, we must prove ourselves capable, not only of reaching, but of belonging. And so, as we stand now in the 21st century, on the cusp of new leaps: artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, space colonization, we are asked not only what we can do, but what we should do. Each choice shapes the path forward. Each technology carries the weight of possibility. The question is whether we will use these tools to extend the flame of consciousness, to carry life into the cosmos as intended, or whether we will turn them inward, consuming ourselves in the process. The trajectory of human technology, then, is not random. It is a pattern, a rhythm, a spiral rising upward. From fire to spacecraft, from stone to silicon, we have moved in leaps, each building on the last, each accelerating the pace. It is as though we are part of a larger symphony, one that began long before us and will continue long after. Whether guided by chance, necessity, or design, the melody is unmistakable. It is the song of life reaching for the stars. And as you listen to this story, perhaps you feel the rhythm too. In every invention, every idea, every leap, there is a thread that connects us to our ancestors and to the cosmos. We are the children of fire, the dreamers of stone, the singers of stars. Our technology is not only what we make, but who we are becoming. And perhaps, just perhaps, it is also who we were meant to be as we come to the end of this long journey together. Let us pause for a moment and simply breathe. The question we began with, what if we were placed here, is still with us. It lingers, soft as starlight, resistant to any single answer. And yet, along the way, we have uncovered something important. The search for origins is not only about the past. It is about the present and the future. It is about how we see ourselves and how we choose to live. If panspermia is true, then we are more than children of Earth. We are children of the cosmos. Our atoms already whisper this truth, forged in the hearts of ancient stars, scattered across space by explosions more powerful than we can imagine, gathered together in clouds of dust and gas until they formed worlds, oceans, forests, and finally, us. Even without panspermia, we are cosmic in our essence. But with it, the story becomes even more intimate. It suggests that life itself is a traveler, a wanderer across the galaxies, scattering seeds in the dark, hoping some will take root. We are one of those seeds. We are the blossom of a tree, planted perhaps long before we were aware of time. And if the seed was placed deliberately by others, or by our own distant descendants, the meaning deepens. Then life is not only chance, but intention. Someone, somewhere, wanted us to be. Someone scattered the spark that would one day burn in our minds, ignite our creativity, and carry us from stone to satellite. Whether they were ancient visitors, cosmic gardeners, or future humans looping back through time, the act was one of profound significance. To place life is to believe in its potential. It is to trust that from fragile beginnings something wondrous can grow. But even if no one placed us, even if life arose here spontaneously, the wonder remains. For then the universe itself is the gardener, scattering possibilities across endless worlds. And we are the bloom that emerged here against all odds. To say we were not placed is not to say we are meaningless. On the contrary, it means that meaning is something we create. The cosmos offers the canvas. We paint the story. This, perhaps, is the deepest answer. Whether placed by others or born of chance, life is extraordinary. Consciousness is extraordinary. That we can even ask these questions is extraordinary. The fact that we look up at the night sky and wonder, that we tell stories and write poems and build telescopes to peer into the dark, is itself evidence of something remarkable. We are not simply machines built to survive. We are beings that seek, that imagine, that create. That impulse alone suggests we are more than biology. Throughout history, myths have told of beings descending from the sky. Science has traced the evolution of our genes. Archaeology has uncovered mysteries that defy easy explanation. Philosophy has wrestled with the meaning of our existence. And technology has given us the tools to ask these questions on scales once unimaginable. All of these threads weave together into a tapestry that stretches beyond our lives, beyond our world, perhaps beyond our comprehension. And so the question is not only whether we were placed, but what we will do with the gift of being here. If we are seeds, what will we grow into? If we are travelers, where will we go? If we are gardeners ourselves, how will we tend the life we have been given? These are questions not for distant gods or future humans, but for us, now, already. We are extending life beyond Earth. We send probes to other planets, rovers to distant deserts of dust, telescopes to the edges of the visible universe. We are learning not only how to survive here, but how to carry survival outward. Perhaps one day we will plant seeds of our own, scattering life across the stars. Perhaps one day another world will look up at its sky and wonder if it was placed there, just as we do now. In that moment, the circle will close. We will become what we have always suspected, participants in a story larger than ourselves. But until then, we are here on this small, blue world, fragile yet astonishing. Earth, with its oceans and mountains, its storms and seasons, its forests alive with song. Earth, with its balance so perfect that we thrive in its air and drink from its rivers. Earth, with its moon that steadies our axis and tides that shape our shores. Earth, which seems not just habitable, but welcoming. Whether placed or not, Earth is a gift, and in the quiet of night, when the world slows and the stars emerge, we can feel this truth more clearly. We are not only looking outward, we are looking inward into ourselves. The same mystery that shimmers in the galaxies burns in our own minds. The same questions that hover at the edges of science echo in the chambers of the heart. We are not separate from the cosmos. We are its expression. The thought is both humbling and empowering. We are small, yes, specks of dust in a universe of billions of galaxies. But we are also vast. Within us are the elements of stars, the memory of evolution, the possibility of futures yet unimagined. Within us is the ability to dream, to build, to love, to create beauty. These things are not accidents. They are the essence of what it means to be alive. So as we close this exploration, let us carry the question with us, not as a burden, but as a companion. What if we were placed here? The answer may never be final, but the asking itself is enough. It invites us to live as though our lives matter, as though our choices matter, as though being here is both privilege and responsibility. Look up at the stars tonight, if you can. Notice their silence, their patience, their light traveling millions of years to meet your eyes. And then notice yourself breathing, listening, wondering. You are part of that story. You are a note in the music of the universe. Whether planted by chance or by design, you are here. That is enough. And perhaps that is the real secret. The purpose of being placed or not placed is not only to know where we came from, but to ask where we are going. To live fully, to love deeply, to create generously, to wonder endlessly. To be alive is to participate in the great unfolding of the cosmos. To be alive is to be placed, in the most profound sense, right here, right now. So let us rest in that thought. Let us allow it to soothe us, to quiet the restless parts of the mind. The stars will continue to shine. The earth will continue to turn. And you, for this moment, are here placed in this world, in this time, in this story. Whether by chance or by intention, it is a miracle. And as you drift into sleep, perhaps you will carry with you the soft hum of that truth. We are not only of the earth, we are of the stars. And in some mysterious way, the stars are of us.